own Dolly Parton. Her Hallmark movie, Christmas at Dollywood, premieres Sunday, and a podcast called Dolly Parton's America. It is incredible if you haven't listened to it. They dropped their latest episode.
Yeah, this week's episode deals with a class at the University of Tennessee that inspired the name of the podcast, Dolly Parton's America. It features the professor who created the history class, her students who share some really insightful thoughts on the singer.
They talk about everything from UT football, Dolly's influence, and their own thoughts about being from the South. Earlier today, we sat down with the podcast creator and producer about how they've managed to weave such a unique and informative series about someone we all thought we knew. Here's what they had to say.
Seeing her walk into the room was like seeing this person I'd grown up with only on TV suddenly walk off the television and into a room. Looked exactly the same, still larger than life, but much shorter. So it was like, that feeling, it took about 4 or 5 interviews for that feeling to wear off, to where it was just another human being that you're talking to.
To hear her talk about actually the darker side of what it was like to grow in the mountains, and to see that, coupled with her, positive spirit and her resilience and her way to make anything that's painful into a gorgeous song. I think that was the first kind of eye-opening moment, was like, oh, this comes from reality. Asking about that Trump moment and the fact that her fans are very diverse and come from very different political sides of the spectrum, to really see her spiritual nature and her spiritual take on why she does or doesn't talk about politics in the media. I thought that was eye-opening. She shared other things too, which are gonna come up, especially in the last episode, about things even that she's planning for even after. She's planning things 100 years into the future. So I think that was all really exciting to hear.
As somebody who grew up in Nashville, I still consider Tennessee my home. It was really eye-opening to me to see just how complicated these kids are. They, in many ways, they are emblematic of the South as I imagined it when I was growing up, and in many ways they contradict those pictures. And in many ways, Dolly for them is this patron saint of their homeland, and it was surprising to me also that in many ways she is the story that they're trying to outgrow. She answered every question we asked. She was really, really generous with her time. But there were times in the interviews where she drew boundaries, and she didn't want to talk about, as Shima alluded to, we were talking about politics. She spoke generally about her stance, but she didn't want to go past that. And obviously that's because she's apolitical, right? So there were times like that where she really drew boundaries, but in the kindest sort of way. And so, as an interviewer, you respect that and you move on. Dolly is the unicorn of unicorns in a way, and so there are very few people who have her breadth and who have lived her life.
Our producer, Leanne, did a great job on that. That interview was on Skype, by the way. The UT students are featured in episode 7, which is out this week.
By the way, Jad's father is a doctor in Middle Tennessee. He has been friends with Dolly ever since he treated her after a minor car accident. Jad focuses on one of the podcasts on his father and his relationship with Dolly and the unique ties that they have. I tell you, I feel like you and I know quite a bit about Dolly. We've always had great admiration for her. I respect her even more. After listening to this podcast, he really pulls back the layers, and you see why she's so likable, and continues to resonate decade after decade. But you can read much more on our website, WBIR.com.